Hi, I'm Winters. A new edition of Horus Heresy 3.0 is available for pre-order at the time this video is going out. And before the new edition came out, I had questions. And so I'm making a series of videos to try and answer those questions, just in case you had those questions too. One of the questions I had, tanks. Let's talk about tanks. I think we were all worried that vehicles were going to change a lot between one edition and another edition, because one of the things Horus Heresy players like about Horus Heresy is that tanks feel different to infantry. Vehicles are definitely different to infantry and dreadnoughts and other things in Horus Heresy, and we wanted that to remain, and it has remained to some extent. It's changed a bit, but it's remained. So, for example, in 40k, everything has wounds and everything has a toughness and everything has an armor value. It doesn't matter whether you're an Imperial Guardsman, you have a toughness of 3, you have an armor save of 5 up. Or a tank, a Land Raider, has a toughness value of 12 and an armor save of 2 up. And the tank has many wounds, and the infantryman, he doesn't have very many wounds. In Horus Heresy, it's a little bit different. Everything's got wounds except for vehicles. Vehicles have hull points, and typically there's a lot less hull points than you would expect, but there's a lot more hull points than there were previously. And you also have armor basings as well. So a Rhino has different armor basings and has 5 hull points. A Spartan, which I think in 40k has 18 wounds, in Horus Heresy has 10 hull points and 14, 14, 14 on their armor basing. And in order to kill a tank, you need to take away all their hull points. So, shooting with tanks. Tanks can move their full distance and fire all their guns. This is a change from previous editions of Heresy. There were lots of rules about staying stationary or moving at certain speeds to fire certain weapons, particularly when it came to ordnance weapons or heavy weapons. That's all gone. A tank will move its speed and fire all of its guns, and typically all the tank's speed has gone down by about 2 inches. Most of them, I think Sakarans are still 16, but Rhinos are down to 12, Spartans down to 10. They will move, they'll fire their guns. In order to fire their guns, vehicles have an armor facing. The guns need to be pointed in the direction of the target. You're not firing through tanks, and there are charts in the book to show you how they fire. So they move, they're 10 inches, they're 12 inches. You line them up in the direction you want to fire in them in, and you fire all their guns in that direction. Tanks can fire all their guns at a target, or they can fire defensive weaponry, which is strength 6 or less, at one target at full ballistic skill, and snap fire their guns at other targets. And all tanks can do this. If they don't have any defensive weaponry with strength 6 or less, or if they just don't care, they can snap fire their guns. Typically for Space Marines, snap firing is hitting on 5s. They can snap fire their guns at separate targets, so long as they're in line of sight and range. So all tanks fire all their guns, regardless of speed, in all directions, snap firing, or at one specific thing with defensive weaponry, or at all the things, no snap firing, all the guns, all the times, one thing. So difficult terrain can slow down tanks. Difficult terrain slows down anything unless it has moved through cover. Dangerous terrain and mobilized tanks are not a thing anymore. Tanks do not get immobilized. The worst that can happen to a tank when it comes to movement is pinned, which is essentially like a stunned result from previous editions. Tanks can be locked down for a turn, but they can't be immobilized by rolling over a crater in turn 1 of the game and rolling a 1, and they're stuck there from turn 1 of the game. Tanks can move now. And then shooting at tanks. When you shoot at a tank, you're shooting at a certain armor facing, rear, side, front. And so you roll a dice, add that to the strength of the weapon, and if your dice roll plus the strength of the weapon exceeds the number value of the armor, then you have a penetrating hit. So for example, Predators, Sakarans, Vindicators, all 13 on the front, las cannon strength 9. 9 plus 4 equals 13, so you need a 5 or 6 to penetrate the tank. If you penetrate the tank, then you apply the damage of the weapon to the number of hull points. So you're going to be losing 1, 2, 3 hull points on the tank. If the armor penetration value is equal to, so if my strength 9 las cannon rolls a 4, which is 13, and hits the front of the Sakaran, which is 13, that's equal to, you do not lose any hull points. You then roll on the vehicle damage table and apply certain stasises to that vehicle. On a 1-2, the vehicle becomes stunned. It can't declare any reactions. On a 3-4, it becomes pinned. It can't move. It's locked in place for a turn. Can't do any movement reactions. And on a 5-6, it becomes suppressed and can only make snapshots. If you do multiple glancing hits to a vehicle, and you are gonna, if a vehicle receives a status that it's already got, so if you pin one in place and then I get 2, 3, 4 more glancing hits and they're all pinned, then the vehicle loses hull points for every additional multiplied status it would take. You could put a glancing hit and a glancing hit on it, and one of the glancing hits stuns it and one of the glancing hits suppresses it, because that's the result of the vehicle damage table, so you haven't taken any hull points off of it yet. And then the third shot comes through and it would suppress it again, so that'd be a hull point. Basically, you can't stack statuses. You can have all 3 applied to one vehicle, but you can't get multiples of the same one. If you're going to get multiples of the same one, that's hull points off the vehicles. Now, when you shoot at a vehicle, it's very hard for the vehicle to take cover. The vehicle needs to be in area terrain, not wholly within, but in area terrain in order to take cover saves from area terrain. You're not going to take any cover saves from intervening models or any cover saves by being outside a piece of area terrain and having your bum sticking around the side of a piece of terrain like that. In previous editions, you might have got a cover save because only part of the hull is showing. In this edition, you need to be in the terrain, or there needs to be another specific rule that the terrain around you grants to the thing which you agreed with your opponent before the turn begins. But you need to be in terrain to take cover saves. Another way you can get a kind of cover save is by popping smoke. Smoke screen is a reaction that you can do if your vehicle has the smoke screen keyword, and you'll give you a 5-up shrouded save. Augury scanners will ignore the smoke screen, but at least you can smoke screen a tank shooting at a tank. In close combat, tanks behave like they did in the previous edition, which means they're not very good in close combat. They're tanks. Basically, they count as weapon skill 1. They don't make any attacks. You just attack it. And you're never locked in base contact with a tank. They're never considered to be, you can always drive off with a tank and you can always leave the tank, and yeah, all attacks in close combat count as though you're attacking the rear armor of a tank. Even if you're in base contact with the front armor 13, if the rear armor of a tank is 10, then your attacks count against rear armor 10, because you know you're climbing all over it and sticking grenades in the tracks and things. And then finally, tanks are limited in the type of reactions they can make and when they can make them. For example, movement phase reactions, tanks can't make movement phase reactions. I think that's pretty much it for tanks. The main thing when it comes to tanks, vehicles in general, is they can move as far as they want to move, and they can fire all their guns all the time. And one of the bonuses you get with tanks is they can split fire to multiple different targets if they want to. They'll snap fire when they do so, unless they're firing defensive weaponry, but in this edition, nearly all the time, a unit shoots at another unit, and this unit shoots at this unit, so being able to split does help an awful lot. The stasises that you get on tanks, such as stunned, pinned, suppressed, things like that, might go at the end of the active player turn. If you're getting shot, you're not going to roll for, and any stasises get put on your tanks, then in your turn those stasises are still there. You roll to get rid of stasises at the end of each active player turn in the stasises sub-phase effect. Tanks recover, heal any stasis on a 6. You roll a 6, it's gone. You do it at the very end of your turn. Some tanks have bonuses to that, have auto repair 4 up or auto repair 5 up. Rhinos have auto repair 4 up. So on a 4, it can repair that status effect at the end of your turn. Then there are other rules like the Battlesmith special rule. If there are Tech Marines running around or Ferris Manus or anyone like that running around, so long as they're within range of one of your tanks in your movement phase, so that will start at the start of your turn rather than the end of your turn, you can make intelligence checks for your Battlesmith rolls to try and remove either statuses from tanks or heal hull points and back onto tanks. And that will happen if you have Battlesmith, and that will happen in your movement phase. But what you'll tend to find is most tanks, when they get shot at, are either going to die at the end of the turn because they're going to be attracting a lot of firepower, or they're just going to take 2 damage, 3 damage. They're going to take a chunk of damage because the hits that all came through were penetrating anyway. It didn't glance the tank, it penetrated the tank. One of the rules, for example, is Armor Bane. Las Cannons have Armor Bane, melters, they have all Armor Bane. The Armor Bane rule now is if you get a strength of a weapon to pen a tank is equal to, it doesn't cause a glancing hit, it causes a penetrating hit. So strength 9 needs front armor 13 against front armor 13. Normally you need a 5+ to penetrate the tank and do some hull points to it. But on a 4+, 9 + 4 is 13, front of the tank 13, that equals, normally that'd be a glancing hit, but las cannons have the Armor Bane rule. That glancing hit always counts as a penetrating hit. That's what Armor Bane does now. Previously, multi-melters would pick 2d6, would add 2 dice rolls together to penetrate the side of a tank because melters had Armor Bane. But now melters have Armor Bane and you don't roll 2d6 to pen the side of a tank. What you do is, it just means if you get a glancing hit, it's an automatic penetrating hit. Melter also doubles the damage of the hit if you're in melter range as well, but only against tanks, not against dreadnoughts anymore, only against stuff with the vehicle subtype. Anyway, I'm wandering. I think that's tanks. And I hope you found this video useful. I think I answered all the things. I think so. Did I? Not sure. Happy wargaming.